In the 21st century, Saudi Arabia faces an uncertain future with numerous challenges that it must address to survive. The country has managed to overcome these issues so far due to its dominance over a crucial resource that has been highly sought after for the past century: oil. However, the world is gradually moving away from oil, which is a significant concern for Saudi Arabia, as its identity and economy are heavily reliant on this resource. As of 2018, the petroleum industry accounted for a staggering 87% of the Saudi government's annual budget, 90% of the country's export earnings, and 42% of its entire GDP. Saudi Arabia controls roughly a quarter of the world's proven oil reserves, second only to Venezuela. Unlike Venezuela's larger but less accessible reserves, Saudi Arabia's oil is located just beneath the Earth's surface, making it easy and cheap to extract and refine. This advantage has made Saudi Arabia the largest oil producer for decades, and it is currently the second largest producer, closely following the United States. Along with Russia, these three countries are known as the Big Three of global oil production, collectively responsible for about 40% of the world's oil output. However, the United States, with a population of 332 million, consumes most of its oil domestically, making it the 14th largest oil exporter. In contrast, Saudi Arabia, with only a tenth of the US population, produces nearly as much oil, allowing it to export a significant surplus to other countries. Saudi Arabia is by far the largest oil exporter in the world. Oil continues to provide roughly 1/3 of the energy consumed globally. Countries such as India, China, Japan, South Africa, and many European states import substantial amounts of oil from Saudi Arabia, making them heavily reliant on the continuation of these oil supplies. This dependency has granted Saudi Arabia significant geopolitical power over the past century, as it has more oil to offer than any other country. Consequently, Saudi Arabia has a unique ability to influence global oil prices, both positively and negatively. Besides being the largest oil exporter, Saudi Arabia also has the largest spare capacity in oil production. Spare capacity refers to the number of oil wells that are not currently in use, but can be activated quickly to increase production. Saudi Arabia typically maintains a spare capacity of 1.5 to 2 million barrels per day. By rapidly increasing production from these reserves, Saudi Arabia can flood the global market with oil, decreasing prices. Conversely, by reducing production and increasing its spare capacity, Saudi Arabia can create a scarcity, driving up global oil prices. This ability to rapidly adjust oil production is why Saudi Arabia is often called the central bank of world oil. It allows the country to exert significant influence over global oil prices and, by extension, leverage over other nations, including the United States. Although the US now imports only a small fraction of its oil from Saudi Arabia, the kingdom's control over oil production and prices still impacts the global market and the American economy. Oil prices in the United States remain significantly influenced by the decisions of Saudi Arabia's absolute monarchy. After Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, the Western world imposed sanctions on Russia, effectively blocking its oil supply from their markets. This reduction in oil supply led to a rise in oil prices, which in turn fueled inflation across various economic sectors, as nearly every business relies on oil at some point in its production process. Higher oil prices force businesses to increase their prices to cover the elevated production costs. In response to the surge in global oil prices and inflation following the Russian invasion, the Biden administration requested that Saudi Arabia increase its oil production by utilizing more of its spare capacity. This move was intended to lower oil prices and help control global inflation. However, Saudi Arabia did the opposite, repeatedly cutting its production and adding more wells to its offline spare capacity. This reduction in oil supply, coordinated with Russia, drove up global oil prices, enabling Russia to earn more from its oil sales and fund its war efforts in Ukraine. This situation also exacerbated inflation and gasoline prices in the United States. By May 2023, the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve, SPR, the country's emergency petroleum stockpile, had been gradually depleted to its lowest level since 1983. This depletion helped to stabilize gasoline prices temporarily. But with the reserve now significantly reduced, Washington has limited options to prevent gasoline prices from rising further ahead of the November 2024 presidential election. One of the few remaining strategies is to request Saudi Arabia to increase its oil production, which the kingdom would likely do only in exchange for specific concessions. This scenario illustrates how Saudi Arabia uses its oil dominance to exert geopolitical influence worldwide. However, the kingdom faces a significant challenge in the 21st century. Its oil-based power has a finite lifespan. As countries gradually shift their economies away from oil, Saudi Arabia's role as the central bank of global oil will diminish, and its influence will eventually wane. Now, if you like this video, check out this next video right here.